podcast with two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us, and we'll stumble along the way, but we promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Matt here with Hannah today, and we've got a brand new website you can use to keep tabs on our show and our socials all in one place. Check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We are truly grateful for all of our listeners and genuinely thank you for fitting us into your busy life. You can help us grow the community by following, rating, and reviewing us on Apple and Spotify. We definitely have the best community in the business. Yes, Hannah?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, before we go beyond Sundays, I want to transition like this. Are you and Liam, do you happen to be watching a show on Amazon Prime called House of David?
Actually, I've never even heard of it.
Okay, this is so good because it's going to lead into our topic so well today. Okay, so I don't quite know who the producer is, and I don't know of a polite way to say this. So since it's just me and you talking and no one else will hear this, I'm going to say this impolitely. There are times when Christian-based shows, movies, media is a little cringy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not that. This has some money poured into it. They
Okay.
hired some actors that are Middle East, like of the place. So it looks good. The sets look good. And what I like the most is they're kind of tracking, and a lot of people are familiar with the major points of the life of David. So like the main shtick is he's going to fight Goliath, but then in other episodes, they're bouncing back, they're bouncing forward. They're kind of giving you like the different high points of the life of David. Yeah, it's well done. The actors are good. Here's one thing that I like. The title card at the beginning says we've tried to take care to obey like historical and biblical things, but there are some places where we take some artistic license, and I think that makes some people angry. That doesn't really bother me too bad. But let me just give you one. So we don't know hardly anything at all about David's mom, and in this show, David is this accomplished musician, songwriter. In the show, it's his mom that's taught him to do this. And we have no biblical evidence for that. And so when I'm watching the show, I'll just pause it with the girls and, Michelle and I'll talk about like, listen, we don't really know. This could be, right? But it's so interesting because like David's this man of war, but he has like this sensitive songwriter side. And for them to portray his mom I just love that kind of stuff.
Well, it puts everything in perspective. I also love that name, House of David. I don't know why I feel like it just feels cool. Is it by the same guy that's made The Chosen?
I, to be honest with you, I do not know. I should have looked that up before we started recording. I don't know. There's a Saul character. He's doing a great job because there's those biblical passages where, God leaves Saul. And so like an evil spirit comes on him and they're just having Saul. I didn't really think about this, but they're just having Saul like kind of go nuts in the palace and his family's reacting to it. And there's just all this. There's just all this extra stuff that we don't think about because we're just hitting the high points of the Bible and they're really filling it in. I'm loving it. I really am.
Well, it's like I've said this before, even from the pulpit, like we make these people out to be characters as opposed to real people. And so it puts it in a place where you can actually see it. I'm going to have to check that one out. Now, let me ask this too.
Okay.
So Saul was supposed to have been very tall and attractive, right?
Yep.
Is he in the show?
Well, this is like middle-aged Saul, right? So they're basically
that doesn't mean he can't be tall and attractive.
No, he's good. I mean, he's an actor. He's a good-looking dude on the show. Yeah. But they've got like scenes where like Samuel comes in and like Samuel says stuff and like the wind kicks up and starts blowing. It's like God, back in Samuel's words. I don't know if that's really happening or not, but I may just be a nerd for this kind of stuff. But it's got me hard, and it really is good.
It doesn't have a cringy feel. Like even whenever.
Nope.
What? Okay. This is a must for me. It's on Amazon.
Amazon Prime. Yep.
Oh my gosh. And I feel like this is the way that people have talked about The Chosen. And I have only I've watched like a clip from The Chosen and I can't even remember. Maybe when Jesus was talking to Nicodemus or something like that. And there were things about the text that I didn't understand.
Okay, yeah.
Because I hadn't had the full context. But whenever they put it in the show, you're like, oh, this wasn't just a conversation on the street. They were hiding, and this was a big deal because he was a big deal. I love stuff like that. I will say, like The Passion of the Christ. Did you watch that?
I've watched it multiple times, yes.
Do you like that one?
I just may be the wrong person to be asking about this stuff because I want to know the detail. Like I want to know this stuff so bad. that even where things have shortcomings, I'm willing to overlook it some because like that's my savior. I know it's not,
100%.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I just kind of get
Yeah.
lost in it. And yeah, I enjoyed watching it. I did.
I just had trouble with that one because of just all of the blood. You know,
Yeah,
obviously I know what happened in it. You know, you could
sure.
make the argument it's good to watch to see. I know it in my mind.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's just too much for me to that show specifically.
sure.
House of David though,
Sure.
it's on
Yeah.
my list.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
adding this on my
Yeah.
list. That's a
And
good
I
one.
got to say to like all the Hollywood people out there, I just really feel like biblical stories are like an untapped source of money. You know, like
Oh
I
my
don't feel like
gosh,
they
yeah.
get covered enough. And when they do get covered, sometimes it's this like cringy, low budget stuff. I think there's people out there that'll watch it, like for real.
100%.
Yeah.
100% there are people, nerds like us. No, we're not nerds.
Exactly,
Just
exactly, nerds.
we
No, we
just we
are.
just
It's
like the
okay.
Bible.
We
Yeah.
can just claim it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to tell you about that show just because you know we're friends and I want to tell you about that show. But also, I just could not think of a better way to get into our topic today,
Oh yeah.
which is Heaven's movie theater.
Yes.
So let me back up and let me just say to the audience, I've had very few like legitimately good ideas in my life. And I'm not going to say that I'm the only person that's ever had this idea, but I am going to defend the fact that I'm the only person that I've ever heard in my world that's ever had this idea. You've brought this
Okay.
up on this show before,
I
yes?
did. I
Yeah.
did, but
And I got
I didn't
feisty
break.
about it.
I wasn't trying to take the idea.
I
I
know,
was
I
just
know, I know. I know.
stating it.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the conceit. The conceit is you go to heaven and we
Okay.
are worshiping and it is wonderful and it's perfect and everything is great. But there is this, the only way I can think to describe it is what we would have here on earth. And it may be something different or it may not
Yeah.
exist at all, right? But let's just imagine there's a movie theater in heaven. You can
Okay.
go in, you can sit down, and you can watch the actual events play out.
Okay.
That may be my single like favorite part of thinking about heaven. I just need to know this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have jokingly said this before, but I'm kind of serious about it. If there's not one, it's not heaven to me, and I might just leave. You know,
I just cannot imagine that there won't be, that they won't be able to replay some of this stuff.
we're gonna get to watch this stuff, right?
I can't imagine that that won't be the case.
Yes.
How can all this stuff happen? Or it's just, I would prefer the movie theater way more, but maybe it's just dropped into our heads and we just see it. But I would
it's
prefer
like it's
to
like a
get
collective
popcorn.
memory, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I again, I would like to sit in a movie theater with some popcorn and just like,
Yes.
I mean, to me, that would be like praise. I'd be like, yes,
Yes.
there he goes. He's
Yes.
doing this. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Because I think an underrated part of this is like we think of these things as like an other or a separate, you know, and we just to take a character we've already talked about, you know what, not a character, a person we've already talked about
a
in
person.
David.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
We kind of like make him an other from the Old Testament, but like David is our ancestor in this faith. You know, like he's part of our story, part of our lineage.
Yeah.
We're grafted into that lineage. And so like these aren't just things for us to watch. This is part of our story, part of
It
who
is.
we are. And I think that's
100%.
beautiful. And we should think about it that way more.
Yeah, 100%. I'm on the same exact page. And I selfishly just want to see it.
Yes.
I want to
do
see
too.
David and Goliath. You know, I want to see it.
I do too. Well, we'll see if you get to see David and Goliath because listeners, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this a draft. And I don't know if it's right to get like competitive in this way about the Bible, but we're both kind of competitive. So we're just going to do it and who cares, you know?
Yep.
So we are going to draft 5 and we're going to rotate back and forth. Each of us are going to draft one, meaning that if somebody drafts an event from the Bible, now we are only thinking about things from the Bible. I was thinking about opening up to anything like watching the Declaration of Independence be signed or seeing who really killed JFK, like just really going all over the place.
Yeah.
We're just going to hold it to biblical things, meaning if Hannah picks an event, then it comes off the board and I can no longer choose that event. So then we will spin these into a social media post. We will put it out there on the internets, as they say, or probably as no one says. Right.
No
and
one.
we will let our listeners vote to see who has the better movie lineup for these events that we've got to see in heaven. Do you have anything to say before we just set this wrapped up?
I think I have some great ones. And I learned a lesson through this that I'll get to on my number 2 point.
Okay.
I learned a hard lesson. Yeah.
Okay. Before we draft, here's what I want to do. I want to set the scene for everybody. Okay. We have just moved into Heaven's movie theater. Okay. I want you to set your scene. This is your version of heaven. And again, we may get there and God has obviously something way better for us. What does Heaven's movie theater look like to you? What's our seating? What's our concessions? Like put everybody in the mode here.
Okay. I don't know why I want red seats, but I want red seats.
Okay.
But they have to be the reclining.
Oh.
And to me, if we're really getting technical, like I'm like, okay, I think I want a leather seat, but then I'm like, they have
You
those
get a
little
little sweaty
soft.
sometimes? No?
No, I don't
Okay.
really.
All right.
But that soft material, you know what I'm talking
Ooh.
about? Kind of
Yeah.
fuzzy.
Yeah.
I don't know though. Okay, I have to think about that part. But red seats is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
You go in, it's all tiered, of course. That's the best movie theater.
Sure.
And they lean back, but then you have
Okay.
to have a nice, warm, fuzzy blanket. We have a blanket we use all the time here that's like wonderful. So I'd have to have that. Um, I'm gonna have my little kitty cat there is going to sit with us as well because
Oh
kitty
man.
cats are gonna be in heaven.
This
Don't
is
burst
not
my
heaven
bubble.
now. Yeah,
Do
bye.
not burst my bubble. You could sit in a different theater. um, I think there has to be popcorn, even
Okay.
though I popcorn hurts my belly, but it's heaven, so
It
it won't
won't.
matter.
You're perfect. It's perfect.
Yes.
Done.
Okay. Done. So I'm gonna have a Dr. Pepper. I'm gonna have a coffee at one
Okay.
point.
Okay.
I'm gonna have those little nerd clusters. There'll be nachos,
Ooh.
barbecue nachos.
Okay.
There'll be some ice cream that people can have.
Okay.
And that to me that's pretty perfect. And then of course the people that I really love and enjoy around me, so that we
Sure.
can like ooh and ah, like
Yeah.
did you see that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my thought. Of course,
Okay.
it has to be a big screen, and yeah.
I agree with you. I'm gonna say a couple more things about the seating real quick. I'm gonna need some plush seating, as you're saying. I want to like sink
Mhm.
down into it a little bit.
Sure.
But here's what I need. I need the seat to be heated, but I also need the option to cool
Oh,
it, kind of like the seats in a car, right? And just however I'm
okay.
feeling.
Okay.
Okay. I'm also going to need, this is heaven after all. I'm going to need one of those like massage back things to be able to come up when and if I need it. And then it will recess back into the chair
There's
and I
so
won't
much to
feel it
watch. You're gonna
anymore.
need it
Yeah, I'm going to be there for a long
for
time.
a
Like we
long
have
time.
eternity. I'm pretty much watching everything, right? Okay, concession stand, right? You go out and it is laid out. This is what I'm thinking. It is laid out by cultural cuisines of Earth
Oh, oh yeah, because I need
because
some Thai food.
yes, if there's anything that humans have actually done well, it is like we take the food that we grow and create, and we have made some really cool foods. So I'm
Yes.
going to need like Mexican food, Asian, different types of Asian food, but I'm also going to need a little counter for angelic food because if there's
Oh.
something they have that I have never had access to,
Oh.
like I need some manna while I'm watching some right? I need like everything that I can need. And then I'm gonna need, I know this is getting really specific, but this is heaven, right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a never-ending stomach. Okay. So
Oh
I can
my
just
gosh,
keep
that's yeah.
pounding all the time. Like give me some
Yep.
lasagna, give me some burrito, right? Just pound all the time. And I don't think there's no sin anymore. So gluttony's out the door. So
Yep.
let's just big back, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Way to bring a Gen Z or whatever word in. I don't know which one it is. Big back.
Woo.
100% though.
Okay. All right. I think
Unlimited
we're set.
food. Oh yeah, we're ready. We're
We've
ready.
invited everybody in. I think we're in the theater. The only polite thing I know to do here is to give you the first pick. So
Okay.
I think you get first pick, and I think there's one last rule. I think that
Okay.
the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus just has to be off the table because I almost feel like that's everybody's number one, right?
Yeah, and you almost feel guilty if you don't choose it as your number
And that's
one.
why we are Christians. So
Yeah.
let's just assume that's it. Okay, so taking that off the table, Hannah,
Okay.
you get first pick.
Now, hold on. Let me ask you this. Is first pick my number one, or am I starting from my 5?
I hope that you are dumb enough in this draft to start with the fifth thing that you want to watch because I'm going to start with my first thing. So,
Okay, so my first one,
okay.
there's no way this one is on your list. I
Oh,
just do not think it is.
really?
Not because it's not one
This
that
is
you
your
know.
number one thing that you want to watch. You don't think it's on my list at
100%.
all? How many
100%.
things do you think I have written on my list right now?
10.
I have 17 things on my list. I came
I thought
prepped
I
for
had a
this.
lot because I have
There's
10.
a strategy. I've had scouting reports. I've got bullet points. I've talked to
Jeez.
people. I'm going to lose this draft, no doubt, but like I'm ready for this thing. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so my number one is this.
Okay.
It's when the woman that was caught in adultery was thrown before Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
That is one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible because I think it is just such a beautiful, moving moment when she is thrown before Jesus. And what I love about that is she's thrown there and Jesus says, if you haven't sinned, throw the first stone,
Yeah.
and then gets
Yeah.
down on the ground and writes something.
Yes.
We don't know what he wrote.
We got to know what he wrote.
We have to know what
We
he wrote. I
have
have
to.
no
Is
clue.
he down there like writing calculus 2 into the dirt? Like we have got to know what's going on down there.
What's going on? Because these people start to leave one by one. These people that want to crucify him.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, if I were the Pharisees, who cares what this man is writing in the sand?
Yeah, right.
Well, it had to be something juicy. It had to be something good. And I just feel I just feel so much for that woman.
Okay.
And the position she was in. Also, I want to know how they found her. I've wondered that forever. Like,
Sure.
did they set this up where they were
Mm.
able to find her? Was the man that she was with somebody they sent in so they could catch her and then trick Jesus into saying something?
Interesting.
I'm just curious about that whole setup. That's the first one that I would like to watch.
Okay. You are correct. That is not on my
I didn't think
extensive,
so.
well-researched list, but that is a great one. I like that event a lot because to me, it's like they tried to catch him in the law and he showed how to fulfill the law.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful, right? Jesus is the fulfillment of the law of the Old Testament. And this is what it's supposed to look like, guys. And that is really a beautiful moment.
And
I agree.
I just love the intimate moments like that with Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much is like, I think you and I are similar in this. Like, we have those deep conversations and you want those moments with people. Like I small talk, whatever. It's great. You kind of I don't really like that.
Sure.
And I feel like this was one of those moments where it's just an intimate thing with Jesus that we see.
Yeah.
So I told you it wouldn't be on your list.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. The smack talk has already started. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad that the number one thing on my board is still on my board. I am selecting the 7 days of creation with my first pick.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I actually thought that okay, I thought about it, but I didn't put it on there. Anyway, go ahead.
It's not on your okay.
No, because I felt like that was an easy layup.
Oh, wow. So what you're
Now
saying
I'm
is
just trash talking.
there's like so many people that would want to see this that it's obvious to go on the list.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for praising my first pick. Okay, so I need to know, is there a big bang? Was there not a big bang? Was it 7 24-hour periods of time?
Yeah.
Was it longer because he's God? Is it something completely and totally different that we've been wrong about the whole time? There's that phrase in Genesis that says the earth was without form and void. What did that look
mean?
like? What is going on there? How do we fit the dinosaurs? Like, there's so much stuff. And I know that the Bible's not a science textbook and that we've got the details that we need to have faith in God and to move forward. But man, I have like 6 gajillion questions about the first 7 days of creation. And I would love to watch that.
100%. We talked about it in youth group last night. Like, specifically with the dinosaurs, we were talking about time and the dinosaurs. And I mean, there's proof that there were dinosaurs. Where do they fit in with
there
creation?
are big old bones.
You can put them together and create a dinosaur. Where did that fit in?
Yeah.
And I agree with that big bang. Like, I think science and God work hand in hand. And so
I do too. I frequently think that science is like explaining what God has done. Yeah.
Yes. So this big bang, was that just God speaking?
Yeah.
And it just happened. But then obviously our brains can't fathom this. What was God before everything?
Oh,
it almost makes me want to rip my hair out because I'm like, what does that look like?
Please rip some hair out for our YouTube listeners. That would be awesome right now.
They'll love it. Yeah, I think that's a great one. And again, the time thing. What was that time like? Also, what did it look like when God rested?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Right. He's probably gotten our seats, in the movie theater. They're pretty nice.
They're pretty good. He was eating some nachos. Yeah. I completely agree with that one.
Yeah. Okay. That's my number one pick. Okay. Hannah, your second pick.
My second pick is this. It is when Moses saw God face to face. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff was that one of yours?
Oh, it's on my list. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that makes me feel like I had a good one here. That's, in Exodus 33.
Okay.
Again, I feel like that's a relatable story. And so much of Moses's relationship with God, I feel like, and kind of correct me here if you think differently, but
sure.
I kind of feel like was before, it feels like it was before its time because at that time, there was so much that you had to go between to have a relationship with God. And Moses is asking these intimate questions of God. Like, God's telling them, to go. And he's saying, well, I can't go without you. I can't go if you don't go with us.
Yeah.
So he's begging God of these things and God listens. And God says, okay, I'm going to show you my backside.
Yeah.
I'll put you behind this rock here. Yeah. And then remove my hand. I mean, that is so intimate and personal. And then what did it really look like? When he came down the mountain and his face is glowing,
yes, they're scared of him. He's got to put the veil on his face because literally his skin is shining. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know that there's anybody else in the Bible that has ever been that close to God other than
No,
Moses. I don't know
no,
how there could be.
no, I don't either. And before that I was reading, so there was a temple outside of the camp they would have to go to,
Mm-hmm.
um to get a hold of God. And when Moses would go in, all of the Israelites would come out to their tent and they would worship standing outside of their tent.
Yeah.
I didn't know that kind of stuff either. So just seeing all of that,
Yeah.
and even being outside of where Moses and God were and looking at the Israelites in the camp, like, I'm curious, what were these people doing? What were they feeling?
Well, at
I
one
mean,
point they were building a golden calf and dancing around it, and
they
Moses
they
came. I,
were.
I mean, I think you get that in your movie too. I mean, you get God like
Yes.
writing on the tablets. Can you imagine? Moses has these stone tablets, and he gets so mad at the Israelites. God Himself wrote on these tablets, and Moses just breaks them on the side of the mountain.
Breaks them.
That's like
And
the ultimate
again,
teacher's angry at you. It's so bad.
100%. And again, I'm like, what kind of relationship
Mm,
did Moses have with God
yeah.
to be able to do that, and then to feel bold enough to go back and get these stones written on again, and then to hold the stones in your hand that,
Mm.
that God wrote. I mean, holy
A
guacamole.
second time because you broke the first ones in
because you
anger.
broke
Yeah.
because you broke
And
the
God
first
was
ones
like,
in anger.
yeah, okay, we'll do it again. Yeah.
So that is my number two.
That's good. That's a good one. That's a good
Okay,
one.
let's hear yours.
It was on my list, but not my number two. My number two is David and Goliath.
Okay, that's a good one. That was on my
Okay.
list, but further down.
Oh, okay. I feel
Yep.
like this is some center crux of the Old Testament stuff.
Oh yeah.
It is like Israel is forming itself into a nation. Just another quick plug for the House of David show, also sponsor the pod, guys. Another
Yeah.
quick plug is like I hadn't thought about this before, but Saul's the first king of Israel. And so
Yeah.
that's a different thing than having judges. And it says over and over in the Bible that in the time of the judges, people did what was right in their own sight. So it was really kind of decentralized. And so this Saul character in the show talks about building Israel. And I just had never thought about that before. It's like, well, that's kind of true. Right. So you've got this. And now you're transitioning to David. And of course, we know the end of his story is that like Jesus is going to come out of his lineage. And so in a lot of ways, this is like the birth of Israel as a country, beating back some of these people that were
Ah,
supposed to be beat back. And like, also, there's just the stuff of like, how big was Goliath?
that
Okay.
that was literally exactly what I was thinking.
Because
How
like
how
you and
big
I
was he
have,
really?
we have a mutual friend who's like a tall dude that we used
Yeah.
to go to church with. So are we
Yeah.
talking about like that, or are we talking legitimately 9 feet tall? The Bible says that his spear is as thick as a weaver's beam. I don't know what a weaver's beam is. I'm going to tell you right now, if I try to throw a spear with a weaver, like my shoulders pop. Like, what does this guy look like? I need to know.
And then that makes me wonder, what did people look like then?
Okay.
Okay, now this is a silly question. So we watched something last night on YouTube that was talking about like somebody a long time ago that was really short, and they tease him about being short in history, blah blah blah, but really he was the average height for people
Oh,
then.
sure, 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 sure.
Is that
Yeah.
Were people shorter then?
I think there's probably some evidence that they were. Like even in the mid 1800s, Abraham Lincoln was like 6'4", and everybody's like, "This dude's huge," you know. So I
Mm-hmm.
do think that they were shorter at the time. But again, Goliath is such an outlier. So is he like 7 feet? Does he look like Shaq? And obviously, if we met Shaquille O'Neal in person, like it would just be like,
Yeah.
what is happening right now, right? But
Yeah.
if you're average, like I'm 6'2", 6'3", if your average height's like 5'2", 5'3", right? I just these are details I need to. I don't need to know
For
these
him,
things to follow Jesus, but I
no,
need
no,
to
no.
know, you know?
Well, for them to call him a giant, you've
Yes.
got to be really big. And then the cutting the head off, and I want to know how big the stone
Mm,
was. I
yes.
want to know. I just want to know where's everybody else? This
What?
guy
Okay.
just kills Goliath. Why didn't y'all run
Yes.
up and take over?
Yes. What? Also, what did David say to Saul in that tent to let Saul let
Um,
David go do that?
what
It
was the?
makes it makes no sense for Saul to let David go do it. Like that must be been the speech of a lifetime.
I
And
know,
and Saul's just like, yeah, man, here's my armor. Go
and
get it
that's
done.
the context I feel like we miss a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it doesn't change what we believe about the
Right.
Bible,
Right.
but
Right.
it's
Right.
like, I want to know what was said. I want to know what his brothers were saying amongst each other
Yes.
as little David's going out
David's
there to
walking
do
up with
this.
his $5 footlong from his dad so he can deliver bread to his family. You know what I mean? He's just literally the messenger boy. And Saul's like, yeah, kid, strap it on. Let's go. It's
I mean,
crazy.
just
Crazy.
oh
Crazy.
my gosh.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking in
Yeah.
that movie too, like when that stone is let go, you're like the eruption from heaven's movie. You know what I'm saying? You're just getting like it's roaring in there.
Oh yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
just want to hear how it
Thunk.
hit his head. Like,
Yeah.
I want somebody to, well, okay, this is not true, but I kind of would like somebody to try it in real time. Like, what happens with that? Can you really
Oh,
die
you
from
heard it
that?
here first, kids. Go out, make a video, have somebody sling a rock into your forehead, send it
That's
to
what we're trying this
beyondsundayspod
week.
at gmail.com.
That's going to be our video posted. We're going to try it on you.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. Your
Okay.
third pick. What do you got?
Excuse me. My third pick is the Red Sea. Again, when the Red Sea is parted. Again, what does this whole thing look like? So I'm reading up on it again today, and I'm looking at some of that. And, God hardens Pharaoh's heart to go after them. And the Israelites start saying, why did you bring us out here? I just want to know what the scuffle was like. I want to know what they were feeling when they're standing between the army and the Red Sea. And then I just was
It
Moses
ain't be looking good. Like,
no. Was Moses standing up on a tall rock? Like, how was he doing? What were the people in the back? Oh my gosh. What were the people in the back doing when all of a sudden this water starts to go up? I would have been scared to death. And then people say, okay, walk across. Also, I wonder, how far down did they have to walk?
Yeah, I don't know.
To get into the bottom of the Red Sea. And then what are you
ground
looking
at the bottom is dry, right?
Yes.
It's not just that they're like mucking through. It's basically, I mean, it's not like a paved road, but it's hard rock or whatever, dirt.
Yeah, and is Dory swimming up to the side of the the walls of the water? Like, I don't know what's
it's those
happening.
little turtle guys. They're just out there with Dory and Nemo,
just swimming. I mean,
oh yeah, catch the waves.
Great movie, by the way. That is a great. Don't redo that Disney movie. That's a great one. So that for sure is my number 3 because there's so many questions that I have, and then they get across, and just the whole crashing. Like, what did that even sound like when the water came crashing down? How big was the space between the army and the Israelites when they got out? Was it super close?
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of questions I have there.
Yeah, well, and then there's the symbolic importance of it. This is, God finally freeing his people.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing. That there's some stuff in the New Testament that gets repeated, that we're kind of coming through the Red Sea and Jesus is bringing us through and out. Like it's there again. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that because when you look at like on Bible Hub and you look at the cross reference scriptures, it is repeated over and over. The God who brought you through the Red Sea. I mean, it is not just one and done. It's repeated Old Testament over and over again. And then again in the New Testament. So it's like, this was not just a holy cow for us. This is like for them, they're like, did you see our God that just did this?
This is like first paragraph of the Wikipedia page for God.
Yes. And he wanted to prove that was the whole one of the whole points. He wanted to prove what he could do. Yep. Oh, that gives me chills to even think about. I'm ready for that one.
I agree. That's a great pick. My third pick, I am going to take Jesus feeding the 5,000 with the bread and the fish.
Yep. Yeah,
now, this is not quite as exciting as like the Big Bang creation or David and Goliath, but here's why I like this moment so much. Well, for a few reasons. Let me just talk about the dumb stuff that I need to know. Okay. So listeners, Jesus breaks the bread. All right. And 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Does the bread regrow? Does physically what happens to these bread and fish? Because not only do all these thousands of people eat, they pick up the leftovers afterwards, and there's 12 baskets. So Jesus says a quick little prayer. He just starts, flinging loaves. I'm just talking about the physics of how that miracle worked. 100%. I need to see that and know what's going on. But then on top of that, how, it's obvious, but in the New Testament, Jesus always has these massive crowds, right? And we kind of take that for granted, as in, duh, right? It's Jesus. He's the Savior. He's the Messiah. But those people at that time didn't know that, including some of his own disciples that walked around with him. So I'm just thinking like the effect for me to watch the impact on the crowd of Jesus doing this thing and have these people's faces in the crowd be like, oh, this is like
Yeah.
we ain't never seen anything like this before.
Yeah. 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 I want to go back to just the logistics of it because
Oh
I'm on
yeah,
the
of
same page.
course.
There were, do we remember how many baskets were left over? Was it 12 or
There's a
something?
couple
Or
different stories, but I know for sure in one of the versions it's 12 baskets. You're right.
so I'm on that same page. What was he
I don't
just
know.
break and it just kept filling? Did he break one time and then it just filled up?
Or
I mean,
people
that to
just
me is
passed
like,
it and
okay,
they
what's
broke it and
happening?
they gave one to little Jimmy and there's still the loaf there. Like, what did he do all of it? Did he pass it? Did other people break and they were part of the miracle too? I have no idea.
Yep. 100%. That's something that I just need to know the logistics of. But I do love what you said about seeing the impact on everybody's faces because, well, let me go back a little bit more.
Yeah,
I
sure.
wonder too, how did that many people hear him?
True.
How were they
Yes.
hearing him
Yes.
speak?
Yes.
Like physically, how could
Yes.
they hear it? There
Mm-hmm.
was enough of a spirit or something going on for them to, because they were out in an area far out of town,
Yeah.
right? Because they couldn't get back
That
to
was
eat.
the
That's
whole
why they fed
issue.
them.
They're like, you guys feed them. They're like, we got
Yes.
5 loaves and 2 fishes, man.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
step back.
Who,
I got this.
first of
Yeah.
all, why did you guys not plan for this? Was it
Yes,
just going so
yes.
well that they just
Nobody
decided to
had
stay to
food.
eat?
Like they had to
I'm
pick
like,
little 8-year-old Jimmy, whose mom packed him a
he
lunch.
was
That's a big lunch.
prepared. Poor
Yes.
guy. He was prepared and nobody else was, and they took his lunch. But
It worked
it
out
helped.
okay. I'm
It
sure he
worked
got a
out okay.
basket. It's fine.
He's got a special place in heaven for that. Oh, poor guy. But yeah, I mean, I just wonder what was happening.
Yeah,
What did their faces look like? How
sure.
drawn in were they? Were they kind of having side conversations about it? I mean, so much that I want to see. And that's one of them that I need to see the whole thing play out.
Yes, yes.
I need to see every little
Afterwards, they go
detail.
back to their town. They got to be like, you guys literally got to go see this
What
guy.
are they talking about with their families as
Yes,
they're walking back to town? What are they
yes,
talking about with the people around them? I'm very, very curious about that.
yes.
Okay.
All right, Hannah, you're up.
Random
Pick number 4.
number 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something that I'm teaching in youth right now. And so
Okay.
and I think I may have mentioned it a couple weeks ago. So interested in it. But when Simon Peter was called to be a disciple.
Okay.
So that whole scenario, Jesus shows up to the area where they were fishing.
Yep.
They were coming off the water because they had been fishing. Jesus says, "Hey, take me out on your boat." So Simon Peter, I'm just wondering, like,
There's no
have been
connection. They don't know
they
anything.
don't.
Yeah.
Now there had to have been a crowd because he goes out into the water. And what I find interesting is when he goes out to the water, the reason he's out on the water is because of the acoustics. Like
Yeah.
people could
Sure.
hear it.
Sure.
So he's out there. But what's crazy is I want to know what he said because
Yes.
I think it's in Luke where Jesus tells him, throw out your nets, or tells him something, and Peter's response is master.
Mm-hmm.
And so to respond and call Jesus master, Jesus had to have said something that was so moving to him
Yeah.
that he now recognized, oh my gosh, this is not just an average person. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, we've all had presenters at our jobs. We've had people that try to teach us things. We've watched things on YouTube. I have never been so moved that I wanted to call somebody,
Yeah, right,
king or
master. Yeah.
master,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
and obviously master, that term then was a little bit different.
Sure.
But I want to know what Jesus preached. What
Yeah.
did he say? What did it feel like? Because
Yeah.
there had to have been something
Yeah.
going on that I don't want to say that I'm missing, but that I can't quite pull
Right.
out because it's just like, oh, Peter followed him. Well, there was something that happened that
Oh, for
caused
sure.
Jesus to.
I think this is a great pick. And to me, what's underrated is Jesus is not just magician, bread and fish guy.
No.
Like there were definitely people who followed because of that. But Jesus, I mean, this is kind of dumb and obvious to say, but like greatest teacher of all time.
Had
And
to have been.
I also would love to hear just Jesus just teach.
Yes.
Let me see what it looked like when you did that. I think that's great.
And it makes me think like, so we can the message, there had to have been something in his presentation. It
Yes.
wasn't just the message.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
I think so. Are you trying to say Jesus had some riz?
He must have had some riz. Yeah, yes, absolutely. There had to have been, and obviously he was God. So there's
Yes,
all
of course.
of this pull to him.
Right.
But he had to perfected his craft too.
A
I mean, to be able to
magnetic.
teach.
Yes.
I mean, for this guy to then say master, and then the guy that is the fisherman, the guy that did this for a living,
Exactly.
decides to listen to this guy who's just sitting and speaking on a boat to throw his nets out and to pull up all of these fish. I'm like, okay, there. I want to know. I want to feel what Peter felt then.
P.S. Once again, Peter's doing this, but the crowd's seeing it too,
The
right?
crowd is seeing
This
it
is
too.
another viral moment for Jesus, for the crowd to go home. They're going to be able to tell this story too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I didn't think about that.
Peter's clearly the key there, but the crowd's still there. They're seeing it all too.
They are. That I didn't even think about that. All these people are witnessing this. I want to see the hustle and bustle of the city and what people are saying, and see the Pharisees. How were they able to see that and not change their ways? Yes. So that is my number 4.
Correct. All right, my number 4, hot take. I am going with the single most difficult story in the entire Bible for me to believe is true. Now, let me preface this by saying, I believe this is true, but it is the hardest thing for me to visualize, and that is Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean by this. So you're telling me, now, again, I am a Christian. I believe in God. But you're telling me these animals just moseyed up 2 by 2 and got on the boat by themselves. And that's like, the boat's there. Please tell me, what's like the waste system of the boat? Are we talking about like you close up the boat and Noah and all the animals are in the ark? And is this like, how the monkey house at the St. Louis Zoo, you walk in and just takes your breath away? Is that boat like the worst thing of all time for that?
Oh
like,
my
there
gosh.
are just so many, again, I know I'm dorky, but so many logistical questions that I want to know about. Noah builds this thing for 100 years, right? People are making fun of him while he's building this boat. It's like, bro, it's never rained. What are you talking about? And if you want to go a level deeper into stuff that I'm less sure about, is it a global flood? When it says the whole world, is this just talking about what Noah knows, right? Sure. So anyway, I just would like some clarification. And again, I do believe it, and I've got faith, but man, I need to know some details about this.
It's like the stink bug. Did the stink bug just show up? Or did some of this stuff just evolve as time went on? I mean, the ant, and how did the snakes? Was there a snake? How?
I don't know.
I just don't know. I'm on the same page with you. Again, God is God. I believe it. But I'm like, Lord, you're going to have to show me this one, and I need the details for it. Because I have a hard time. I have a hard time with that one.
It's just so, because like a lot of the stories in the Bible most of them are obviously about people. Yeah. And you can kind of reason your way around that. We're talking about ox, you know what I'm saying? Just trundling up the thing. And again, God's God, and I do believe it, but I would love to watch it all play out.
Well, and I want to watch all the goofy people around who were like, "Oh, it's not going to rain."
Yeah.
And then I feel kind of sad for those people when the water starts to fill up and Noah's just sitting on his boat. Like,
are they there beating on the side of the boat? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a tough scene. It is.
It's a very, very tough scene. So I don't know if I could watch the whole thing, but I'd definitely like to see it.
I can. I'm watching it.
I'll just put on one of those little fuzzy mask things while that's going on and just take a little nap in my chair.
Okay. All right. I like it. Okay. You got your last pick.
Okay.
Why don't you go back? Why don't you go back and tell for our listeners, just say what you got so far.
Okay. So I've had the woman who was caught in adultery was my number 1.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 was when Moses saw God face to face, or saw God's glory, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 was the Red Sea. Number 4 was when Peter was called then to be a disciple. And then my 5th one, before I say it, I have to say originally my number 2, and you're going to laugh so hard at me, is when the dry bones come to life.
No, that's great.
No, I didn't know it was a vision.
Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, okay, I'm not going to give away what I'm going to do with my 5th pick, so go ahead.
Oh, no, because I had all this out, and then I called my dad, who is our pastor,
yes,
5 minutes before we got on this. And I was like, was this a vision? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, what? I thought the whole thing really happened. He's like, well, you could it's figurative, but I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that was number 2 originally.
But you could see the vision. That would be interesting. You could sit in the theater and see the vision that he saw. I don't think there's an issue with that.
Okay, so I'd love to do that. I'm going to put that on because I have
Like
another one. I'm going to
honorable
put the
mention? Yeah. Okay.
honorable mention. It would have
Okay.
been my number 2.
Okay.
But my number 5 is when the walls of Jericho fell.
Oh, yep.
Again,
Good.
what kind of craziness is this?
Yep. Yep.
For 6 days, they walk around
Yep.
these walls.
Yep.
And then the 7th day, they walk around 7 times and then they yell and they all fall. Like, first of all, how far away did they have to be from the walls? What were the people inside doing? Why weren't they shooting or doing something?
Doing something.
I mean, and how many people were walking around these walls?
I don't know. A
Like
lot.
that whole scenario. Where were
Yeah.
they staying? Were they just camping outside?
Yeah,
Like,
I think so. And then just
I
herd of people with the priests in the front. What a weird thing. Yes.
and did the people of Jericho know who the Israelites were and understand what they had been through and like how they had done God had done these great and mighty things? Like, were
I
they
don't know.
afraid?
I don't know.
That is absolutely wild to me. Absolutely
Well,
wild.
and Rahab's house stays
Yep.
intact, right? You got the
That was
scarlet
honorable
cord.
mention for me too.
Okay. Well, I think you get that. That's the same Jericho's in there.
Yeah, yeah. That okay. So I think her story is incredible anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's my number 5.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay.
Did I take yours?
No, I don't know what to do though. Okay, for my fifth pick, I am going to take Elijah and the prophets of Baal.
Oh, I forgot that story.
Yeah.
That should have been on mine.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's a good one.
So you get the altar, you get the fire from heaven, you get the by the way, underrated part of that story, you get Elijah kind of like making fun of the prophets of Baal.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm thinking about.
He's just like, hey, maybe he's in the bathroom, scream louder. Maybe he's taking a nap. I'm sure it wasn't in that tone of voice, but that's it.
I bet it was.
I just wonder, like, if Elijah was a meaner person, he was like, "Hey, try cutting your wrist," just like, just horrible stuff.
Yeah.
To the side. Okay, but then Elijah kills all of them after.
I know.
So I get the fire falling, and then I get Elijah. What does that look like? Dude just killed 300 prophets of Baal. So I get like an action movie. I'm thinking we bring in some hardcore metal. It's like, and Elijah's just going to town.
Too much.
It's not too much. It's not too much. We need it. It's so good.
That is an excellent one. That is an absolutely excellent one. And I had forgotten about that.
Okay.
Because I want to see that whole scenario play out. I also thought about who was the person that killed? Was it Samson?
Yep. Nope. You're right. Samson. Jawbone of a donkey. That's one of the one. I'll tell you in a minute. My honorable mentions. But I was going back and forth. But I was thinking like, okay, I need an action movie here. I need to know, was like Samson like built big, or was Samson? I kind of think Samson was just a normal dude, and the Spirit of God came on him. And he did this really cool stuff, that he just was a normal looking guy. And it's like God's supernatural, right? Because it wouldn't be like,
I think that's
miraculous. I think it's possible. Yeah. So I need to see that.
I'm trying to think through that, whether or not I think he was big and buff.
I don't know. We can just settle it in Heaven's movie theater.
That's exactly right. So wait, are we going to say our honorable mentions?
Yeah. Why don't you go, if just, I'll just move through them quick and Yep.
So I have the Last Supper, the last day before. So that's not the crucifixion, but just all of that stuff in that last
leading
day.
up to
it. When Saul changed his name to Paul with the road to Damascus. I want to see that.
Yep.
The day of Pentecost, I'd like to see that take place.
Uh-huh.
And then this one, I'm surprised I didn't put up way higher, but Lot with his wife with the pillar of salt. That whole story is just absolutely intriguing to me.
My honorable mentions, after people hear these, they may just tank my whole list, because I had the 10 plagues with the Egyptians and I didn't pick it. I did have Samson. I also had like just seeing the Garden of Eden before the fall. Like, what was that like? What was going on?
Yeah.
I had Jonah and the whale. What's his fish? Is he just like eating stuff in the fish, right? And then I also had on my list, this is my last one, I had John's visions for Revelation.
Yeah.
I'm teaching through Revelation at church, and you've been part of that class. Like, I just think it'd be super interesting to see what he saw.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I'd love to see that. If there was anything that we saw and recognized.
Would we write it down the same way? Would we write like those types of things? I think it would be super interesting.
100% agree with that.
Okay. We're going to make this into social media posts. We're going to put it on social media. Hannah, one last time for the listeners, run down your 5 that you've got.
Okay. My number 1 was the woman that was caught in adultery. Number 2 was Moses whenever he was able to see God. Number 3 was the Red Sea whenever it was parted. Number 4 was when Peter was called to be a disciple. And number 5 was when the walls of Jericho fell.
Okay. My list and the clear winner of this draft is
whatever.
Number 1, creation. Number 2, David and Goliath. Number 3, Jesus feeding the 5,000. Number 4, Noah's Ark. And number 5, Elijah and the prophets of Baal. If you're still with us this late in the podcast, I do want to consider something for just a minute before we close. And that's this. Paul writes in the New Testament that we are supposed to comfort one another with thoughts of heaven. Mm-hmm. And so I think like it's much fun as you and I had doing this. And, you know, to be honest, as silly as this kind of is, I kind of think that this may not have exactly been what Paul had in mind.
Yeah.
But I wonder why we don't talk about heaven more. Yeah. Like, what is all this for? It's to get back to being in God's presence. And maybe this is just a personal thing, and maybe you don't feel this way. I just don't feel like I have enough conversations and talks about heaven to comfort one another, right?
100%. Yeah. Even music used to be, I feel like music back in the day was all about heaven. I don't feel like we sing about heaven as much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Why?
I don't know. I think, my personal thought is I think that we're so caught up in fixing what's happening here today that we're not that we're not interested, but kind of not interested in what's to come. We want the here and now. We want the instant healing.
It's like heaven's too far off.
It is. And I feel like back in the day and I hate to say that back in the day, but I feel like they were more focused on this isn't our home. Our home is there, right? We're just getting through this.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
Well, this is one thing that me thinking about this has caused me to think of for myself. I'm going to purposely try to have more heaven conversations because Paul suggested that we do it. You know, like I always cite Paul all over the place in all kinds of things that we believe. So why wouldn't we take this? Let's talk about heaven more. Right. So listeners, do that in your own life. I know this draft had a goofy overtone to it, but we are serious about loving these things. We are serious about these events. And I think that this can be part and parcel of us taking comfort in the fact that these are our stories and this is our God and this is where we're headed and things are going to be put right and good and we're going to be in a good place in the future. So we do want to thank you for joining us today. We always enjoy going beyond Sundays and hope that you have enjoyed our conversation today. If you have any thoughts or comments about our topic today, please get out there on social media and vote on our draft or anything else. Please reach out to us. Go to beyondsundays.com for our show links. Go to beyondsundays.com for our show links and socials. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.